Fundamental Notions 1. Definition and origins of the African diaspora. The African diaspora refers to all populations of African origin living outside the continent, primarily as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, 15th to 19th centuries, the Eastern slave trade, towards the Arab-Muslim world, and post-colonial migrations. Several waves can be distinguished: the ancient diaspora, voluntary or forced migrations before the slave trade, merchants, soldiers, slaves in ancient Egypt. The slave trade diaspora, 12 to 15 million Africans deported to the Americas and the Caribbean. The modern diaspora, economic and political migration since independence, 1960s to the present. 2. The transatlantic slave trade and its consequences between 1450 and 1850. European powers, Portugal, Spain, France, England, the Netherlands, organized a triangular trade, European weapons and textiles for African slaves, exchanged for sugar, coffee, cotton, and tobacco in the Americas. This massive deportation depopulated entire regions, shattered social structures, and created a traumatic memory. But it also gave rise to cultures of resistance, Marronage, revolts, Haiti, 1791 to 1804, and the creation of Afro-descendant communities with hybrid identities. 3. The Eastern and Indian diaspora. Less known, the Eastern slave trade, 7th to 19th centuries, deported millions of Africans to the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia. The Zanj, black slaves, worked on sugarcane plantations in Mesopotamia, while the Siddhis, in India, and Shidis, in Pakistan, formed distinct communities, often integrated but retaining African cultural traits, music, dance, rituals. 4. The post-colonial diaspora. Since the 1960s, African migrations have intensified towards Europe, France, the United Kingdom, Portugal, North America, United States, Canada, and the Gulf countries. These new diasporas maintain economic ties, remittances, $95 billion in 2021 according to the World Bank, political ties, lobbying, participation in elections, and cultural ties, Afropolitanism, festivals. 5. Identity and Pan-Africanism. The diaspora is at the heart of Pan-Africanism. As early as the 19th century, Afro-descendant intellectuals, Edward Blyden, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, called for the unity of all African peoples, on the continent and in exile. The first Pan-African Congress, 1900, London, laid the foundations for global solidarity. Today, the African Union recognizes the diaspora as the sixth region of the continent, symbolizing this desire for reunification. Deepening 1. Major figures of the diaspora and their impact. Toussaint Louverture, Haiti leader of the Haitian Revolution, he embodies the struggle for freedom and equality. His victory against the French, Spanish, and British armies proved that Africans could overthrow the slave system. Marcus Garvey, Jamaica, United States, founder of the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association, he advocated for a return to Africa, economic self-sufficiency, and black pride. His slogan "Africa for the Africans" inspired the Rastafari movement and Pan-Africanism. W.E.B. Du Bois, United States sociologist and activist, he organized the Pan-African Congresses and championed the idea of a global black consciousness. His book The Souls of Black Folk, 1903, analyzes the double consciousness of African Americans. Frantz Fanon, Martinique and Algeria psychiatrist and revolutionary, he theorized decolonization and violence as liberating. His works Black Skin, White Masks, 1952, and The Wretched of the Earth, 1961, are references for anti-imperialist struggles. Malcolm X, United States. After his pilgrimage to Mecca, he evolved towards an internationalist Pan-Africanism, creating the Organization of Afro-American Unity, OAU, in 1964. 2. Cultural contributions of the diaspora. Music, blues, jazz, gospel, reggae, hip-hop, samba, rumba are all born from the fusion of African rhythms with the experiences of slavery and segregation. For example, jazz, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, is a form of resistance and creativity. Literature, writers like Aimé Césaire, Martinique, Notebook of a Return to the Native Land, Leopold Sédar Senghor, Senegal, Toni Morrison, United States, Beloved, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Nigeria, explore themes of exile, memory, and identity. Religion, Haitian Vodou, Brazilian Candomblé, Cuban Santeria, Jamaican Rastafarianism are Afro-diasporic religions that preserve African beliefs and practices, ancestor worship, possession, sacred rhythms. Gastronomy: gumbo, Louisiana, jollof rice, West Africa, feijoada, Brazil, are dishes that testify to the fusion of African ingredients and techniques with those of the Americas. 3. Diaspora and Africa's development. Diasporas play a key role in economic development, remittances, over $95 billion per year, investments in startups, roots tourism, and skills transfer, brain gain. Initiatives like the Homecoming Summit, Ghana, or Th. Our African Diaspora Investment Symposium, United States, encourage these exchanges. Politically, the diaspora pressures for democratic reforms, as during the Arab Spring or the EndSARS movements in Nigeria. 4. Contemporary challenges: racism and discrimination. Afro-descendants still suffer from police violence, economic inequalities, and stereotypes, e.g., the George Floyd case, 2020. Loss of ties with the continent, geographical and cultural distance can weaken African identity, especially among younger generations. Economic exploitation: some diasporas are used as cheap labor or victims of human trafficking. Identity debates: who is an African? Should we prioritize return or local integration? These questions animate Pan-African discussions. 5. The diaspora as a laboratory for Pan-Africanism. The diaspora is a space where African solidarities are reinvented. Organizations like the African Diaspora Alliance or the World African Diaspora Union, WADU, promote unity. The concept of Afropolitanism, Tay Selassie, proposes a global, open, and connected African identity. Festivals: Afro Nation, Essence Festival, create bridges between cultures. The Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804, the first and only successful slave revolt in history, led by Toussaint Louverture. It resulted in Haiti's independence and the abolition of slavery. This revolution inspired abolitionist and Pan-African movements. It shows the power of organized resistance and the ability of Africans to overthrow oppressive systems. The Rastafari movement, Jamaica, 1930s, inspired by Marcus Garvey and the coronation of Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia. Rastafarianism is both a religion and a political movement. It advocates a return to Africa, the use of ganja as a sacrament, and the rejection of Babylon, the oppressive Western system. Bob Marley was its global spokesperson, spreading a message of peace and African unity. The Negritude movement, 1930s to 1940s, a literary and political movement founded by Aimé Césaire, Martinique, Léopold Sédar Senghor, Senegal, and Léon Gontran de Moss, French Guiana. It affirms the value of black culture and rejects colonial assimilation. Césaire, in his notebook of A Return to the Native Land, writes, "My negritude is not a stone, its deafness hurled against the clamor of the day." Born in New Orleans at the beginning of the 20th century, jazz is a fusion of African rhythms, blues, and ragtime. Musicians like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Miles Davis used this music to express the pain and joy of the diaspora. Jazz was a vehicle for dignity and international recognition. Remittances from the Senegalese diaspora. The Senegalese diaspora, about 600,000 people, sends over $2 billion annually to Senegal, representing 10% of the GDP. These funds are used for education, health, housing, and local investments. Associations like the Movement of Senegalese Abroad organize development projects, schools, wells. The Black Lives Matter movement, 2013-present, born in the United States after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, murder of Trayvon Martin, BLM became a global movement against police violence and systemic racism. It mobilized millions of people, including in Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, and revived the debate on reparations for slavery.